From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
Fast work by local firefighters keeps a house fire in Bozeman Pass from spreading to other nearby homes. How it happened and how that blaze was contained so quickly, coming up.
One home in Bridger Canyon still stands thanks to a neighbor's fast actions. I'm Gabby Crevitt, and I'll have that story coming up.
It is 6:30 on this Monday. Chet Lehman, Matt Elwell with you here. Fires dominating our news and our weather right now. The smoke from them, I should say, and it's just been getting progressively worse over the last day and a half or so.
The haze and smoke that we have in place right now, the bulk of that not coming from our local fires, but coming from, they're imported.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Unfortunately, unhealthy air quality for Bozeman, Butte, Dillon, West Yellowstone. Just checked at the top of the hour. That hasn't changed. We also have a red flag warning today. Winds are going to be strong. It is going to be very dry. And the temperatures are going to be hot. Not a good combination of features for us to deal with for today. Temperatures this morning actually very comfortable. 38 in Butte, 45 in Belgrade. But again, smoky and just kind of gross to be outside. If you don't have to be outside and exert yourself, please don't. Temperatures are going to be in the mid to upper 80s. Drink plenty of water. That will help all the way around. All the hazy eyes and itchy eyes. Hydrate. Do whatever you can to stay healthy today. We'll talk more about what you can expect coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:31 now. Gallatin County Sheriff says thanks to the quick response of emergency crews, a fire at a Rifle Road home in Bozeman Pass kept under control, contained within just 2 hours. This all happening yesterday. The call came in around 11 o'clock in the morning for an explosion and fire at a home south of Interstate 90 between Bozeman and Livingston. Here's a look at the damage. Crews working in the area made it to the scene quickly, coordinating with 2 helicopters with buckets, dropping about 4,000 gallons of water to douse that blaze. 30 homes nearby were given pre-evacuation notices by deputies. They include homes on Rifle Road, Winchester, Colt, Goes Nowhere, High Ridge, Woodchuck, and areas of Trail Creek Road. One person did suffer minor injuries. Homeowner able to make it out of the building safely. Sheriff adds those who signed up with the community notification system were also remotely notified about what happened. Warning ended about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. To be clear, this is in the Gallatin Mountain Range, not the Bridger Mountain Range. No other homes were damaged, fortunately. Now, there's lots of stories of neighbors and members of communities stepping up because of the nearby Bridger Foothills fire. TN's Gabby Crevitt has a story on how one neighbor did what they could to save somebody else's home.
We continue to learn more and more of the damage caused by the Bridger Foothills fire, but learned of one family whose house was saved thanks to a neighbor's swift and decisive actions.
It just burned off the window and burned right through into the house.
This isn't the first time the Ozenkup's home has been threatened by a wildfire. It happened a few years ago in California.
We actually were prepared. We had a little safe with all of our really important documents in it.
So it happened again on Labor Day weekend in the Bridger Mountains. Paul and his wife Kelly evacuated when the flames got too close for comfort.
It went from keeping an eye on it to, oh my gosh, the fire's right there over the hill, very quickly. And so we knew once we saw the fire over the hill, we got to get out of here.
On early Sunday morning, the Ozenkup's neighbor, Anne Marie Quinn, went to check and report to her neighbors on the condition of their home.
And as she walked around the neighborhood looking, she saw from the backside that our kitchen was on fire, and apparently an ember had come and landed in a planter we had and set this on fire.
Quinn acted quickly with an extinguisher in hand and started to put out the fire, then flagged emergency responders to help finish the job.
Deputy Fire Chief said that the flames were getting big enough to where they just got it in time before it got out of control.
Ozenkup said Bozeman Fire told them if it wasn't for his neighbor, it's likely his home would have been a total loss.
The fact that our neighbor was out here checking and then didn't hesitate to jump in and do this for us, it was pretty overwhelming, and we owe them everything.
And just as a reminder, the Bridger Canyon area remains closed to everyone except for emergency responders and residents. Reporting in Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
6:34 now. In other news, as wildfires rage across the state, a report commissioned by Governor Steve Bullock hopes to fight the effects of climate change here in the Treasure State. Since 1950, average temperatures in Montana have increased about 3 degrees Fahrenheit. But by 2050, the state could experience an additional 3 to 7 degrees increase in average temperatures. Now, in July of 2019, Governor Bullock issued an executive order to create the Montana Climate Solutions Council. The group's final goal was to develop a climate solutions plan for the state. This week, that plan was released. The group is calling for Montana to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. By 2035, the group recommends that Montana reduce its net greenhouse gas emissions in the electricity sector to zero. They're also advocating for low-emission vehicle standards. The plan was opposed by several major statewide groups, including the Montana Chamber of Commerce and Northwestern Energy. Now you can visit our website, to read that full plan. Well, Tuesday marks 7 weeks until Election Day, and if there is one thing we all know, it's that this election will be different. One thing remaining the same, however, money, and the fact it's playing a major role. So how are the campaigns keeping fundraisers fun over Zoom? Our Joe St. George is in Washington following the money.
Money is something you never quite have enough of. 2020 campaigns, even though they have raised billions and set records, they still say they need more. Why? Because they're spending it. According to Kantar Media, $7 billion will be spent on campaign ads during the 2020 election. That's a record and up from $4 billion in 2016. Why is the number so high? Fundraising. In August, Joe Biden raised $364 million. President Donald Trump raised $210 million. But remember, a good portion of fundraising this year is being done virtually over Zoom in many cases, which makes these numbers even more surprising. To find out how these campaigns are making Zoom calls interesting, we of course Zoomed with a political strategist attending these fundraisers.
A lot of Americans believe Zoom is boring. How are candidates raising money on this platform?
Well, actually, I have to tell you, the virtual fundraising is easier because you can get more people on. It's easier to get a candidate so they don't have to travel.
Are the wealthy donors missing the fancy champagne at all, though?
Well, first of all, it was never fancy champagne. It was usually, nasty Prosecco, but there is some frustration that you don't have the same kind of personal interaction.
2020 is indeed very different. This election is very different, and it may just have changed fundraising forever. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
In other political news, Vice President Mike Pence will still be visiting Montana today, but some of the plans have changed. Vice President will be holding a rally in the Belgrade area to show his support for Republican candidates, including Senator Steve Daines, running for re-election, Congressman Greg Gianforte, who's running for governor, State Auditor Matt Rosendale, who's running for the U.S. House seat. Associated Press reported the Vice President would not be attending a fundraiser as previously announced. However, the public event is still on. You can find your free ticket to the event by visiting our websites. Well, this week's Waiting Child takes us to Anaconda, where MTN's John Amy introduces us to Logan, a boy with an eye for sports.
Logan is a 13-year-old who loves to stay active.
I like to play basketball. I'm kind of wanting to be a basketball player.
But if basketball doesn't pan out, he said he'd also like to be a veterinarian. And that shouldn't be too hard because he's a good student and he says he enjoys numbers and math.
I just have to practice, and then once I get warmed up in math, that's when I can just pop out answers in my head, get spot on.
He's very caring, he's willing to help, he loves doing chores. There's no problems with chores. Keeps a very clean room.
A family that would fit me would be someone who has a lot of animals and who's caring for me, and someone who is willing to give me multiple chances if I make a mistake like a usual person would do.
In Anaconda, John Amy, MTN News.
That's awesome. If you're looking for a forever home or you know somebody that'd be able to help out, head over to our websites and take a look at A Waiting Child. 6:39, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more volunteers needed for COVID-19 testing. Coming up, learn why a giant pharmaceutical company doesn't want just any volunteers, is looking for specific kinds of volunteers. But first, here's what's coming up at 7 on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, there are now nearly 200 wildfires across 14 states devastating the American West. We're going to hear from families who've not only lost their homes, but also loved ones as the destructive fires continue to burn at this hour. Also, COVID-19 vaccine trials are pushing forward as outbreaks on college campuses continue to grow. We're going to tell you why one of the country's leading public health experts feels there may be light at the end of the tunnel. We like to hear that. And also multi-talented actress Drew Barrymore. She talks to Gail about her new talk show. And she says she is not afraid to be herself on live TV and reveals how she's ready to bring optimism to daytime TV. Could all use some optimism. We'll see you at 7.